Thank you for staying with me. I'm joined by Professor Julius Yasale. He's the immediate past chairman of ASU Uniben chapter. Prof, thank you again for coming to join us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
I sit here, off the top of my head, I'm thinking for the most of 2020, two items enjoyed incredibly substantial prominence in the news.
Yes.
COVID-19 and ASU for Nigerians. Right.
What you didn't add hunger.
Well, that has been here for long. It's been here for long.
It's okay.
So basically, I'm thinking, ASU and the federal government had a difference they needed to resolve, and that took about 10 months before the strike was eventually called off. At this point, on account of the COVID-19, the issue is now whether to resume or not to resume. Where exactly are we?
Well, even then, yes, ASU had difference with government. We went on strike in March last year. But however, what greeted that immediately was the COVID-19.
Yeah.
I'm sure that government had to hide under that guise that because of COVID-19, that was why schools were not. Otherwise, I'm sure that government would have attended to ASU. For anybody to allude to the fact that it was because of ASU that children or students were at home for that length of time, 10 months, I don't think that we are kind to our union at all. But now, ASU government returned back to the table, as it were, when the frenzy of COVID-19 died down, and of course, had discussed with ASU, and ASU, because of the compassion that we have for the products that we generate in the universities, that is our children that are in school, of course, had since agreed to return back to work in spite of the fact that everything that government did with ASU was still promissory. If I can tell you that all the timelines have since been flouted, all the agreement that government went into with ASU has since been flouted, because they all carried timeline of the end of last year, 31st of December, whether it is salaries that were seized from academic staff because they didn't sign into IPPIs, who government promised that we are going to return back, going to pay back, have not been paid. Even the salary of December, after ASU has suspended strike, as I speak with you, we don't know where it is. The end academic allowance that they promised that by the 18th of December last year that they were going to release to the universities has not been released. Then the revitalization fund, okay, they said by January, we are still in January, but I can tell you that there is no motion anywhere in sight that will be released. But however, we have agreed that whatever way it seems, we will be available on our seats in our offices to dispense our responsibility. Of course, one of them I'm doing now, which is, what we call kind of public service and all that, which is one of our responsibility and all that. So we are there, we are ready. Many of us are ready to give out some kind of voluntary service. Voluntary service are not paid for.
I need to ask you, yes, obviously, I need to ask you this. While ASU was having its back and forth with the federal government negotiating term, were there discussions that specifically pointed towards the COVID-19 issue? Was the COVID-19 taken into serious consideration while you were having your interaction with the federal government? I mean, ASU now.
Of course,
beyond end allowances, minimum wage.
That is not it's not within. That is not our point. We expect naturally that that consideration would have been given. But I know that recently we're in Senate of University of Benin, and of course, that came up about the safety of our children, or students on campus, and then also staff. You are aware of the number of professors that have died
across this country?
Across this country very recently. All of them purported to be called or caused by COVID-19 and all that. So are we going to fold our hands to wait for that to continue? So that is one would have expected that those who oversee the university, those who, as it were, supposed to have oversight functions over the university, would have at least taken responsibility. Yesterday night, I was discussing with somebody. I said how I saw some schools in China where some sterilizing stations are built at entrances to various schools. Now in we have not seen, and I mean in Nigerian universities, we have not seen the government doing anything in that direction. So as it were, many vice chancellors have been left to in the code to determine whether they can manage resumption of schools or not. And we are trying to help.
You already preempted me because I was
Yes.
heading the resumption of schools. We understand that the Nigerian Universities Commission, that is the NUC,
Yes.
has given a clear directive as to resumption of schools. Some
Of
people
course.
even say on the 18th.
Yes.
Is that still feasible given the facts that you have at your disposal right now?
We're also in despair. What are we going to do? We don't want a situation where again government will say it's because of ASU or thereabout. That's why schools are not resumed. I'm sure. We have announced our calendar. The calendar of University of Benin has been announced.
Which has been altered severally, by the way.
Yeah, no.
On account of closures.
It still remains. No, of course, that is different. The new one, of course, that by the 30th, students are supposed to begin to return back
To school.
And all that. So we are ready to teach in any way we can. And the university vice chancellor, I know, has been working assiduously, working around the clock on how to go around all of this. So different models that I'm sure is being put in place to secure the lives and maybe lives of both lecturers,
staff and students
of the university. So that's I know. But one expects that government will look at, the intensity of what is being discussed in the world. And then as a responsible government, we now think, consider the life of her citizens. But I'm surprised that nobody is talking about anything. Of course, one would have thought that government would have released money. That is where maybe the revitalization and so many of these funds are supposed to come in. But of course, there's supposed to be a kind of special grant that's supposed to be given to the university. Okay, go build sterilizing stations at your gates, and then also provide, temperature meters, so that before any student is admitted into any class or even the lecturer, you do a kind of preliminary test of whether the person
They have symptoms.
Yes, that is what is the least one expects. Even give out money to universities to provide sanitizers everywhere, wash hand stations, and all that. Suppose if you still think that these physical interactions are not possible or plausible, then the next thing that you are supposed to do now is provide data or discuss with maybe these online carriers and all that, and make it feasible for maybe lecturers and students to be able to log in, maybe freely, and then access their lectures online. So what that means is that a lecturer in his office can teach students. Of course, I'm sure that so many private universities have been going on, and they've been able to develop those facilities, and we are there also still very, very ready. In fact, I spoke to a few of my students and told them, go out for this so and so course, go and open a WhatsApp page, if possible.
And you will also be in that group.
Yes, that is how I will be able to teach them.
Right.
If for a particular course, chemistry 405, put me on that page, put the number, put the students. That for students which where you have population less than 1,000, I'm sure. Then, but if it's going to be less than that, that means you are going to create several platforms.
groups.
Yes. and then give your lectures. But the only difficulty we are going to face in situations like that is when it comes to, practical works, laboratory works, and all that. Then you can also still develop on how we can, segment that and teach students. Let nobody say it's ASU, because ASU have said that it's not safe for lecturers and all that. That is why students are still at home.
So unless something drastic happens that changes the status quo, universities resume on the 30th.
Of course, I'm sure that the gates of University of Benin, for instance, on various universities, some are even resuming earlier than us, than the 30th. Some have seen some announced on the 20th. Some are already even going on since the 4th of January. Online teaching is going on and all that in some public universities and all that. We are aware that cynically some persons' goal in this country is to destroy the public universities.
What would they gain by doing that?
Because they want their own private universities, because they are the owners of private universities, many of these politicians and all that. So that students will subscribe to their university and all that. But then, how many Nigerian children can afford private universities?
ASU strikes enough to address this allegation, for example?
You mean?
If ASU goes on strike enough, will it address this allegation, for example? The fact that you claim that there is an agenda to destroy public university system.
Of course, we would have been asking for our welfare alone. But you find that what ASU pursues more in our strike is revitalization funds. So that we can keep the universities
running.
Virile, still be able to deliver our goods. That is why we pursue revitalization fund. And as a welfareist organization, we know that many Nigerian children will be shut out of school if we don't keep the public universities running. We continue to bother and ask, what social responsibility is it that government have for her citizens? You can't provide education. You can't provide light. You can't provide water. If air and not light, the sun was not provided by God, maybe by now would have gone into an institution in this part of the world. What is it that government is ready? The roads are not there. Okay, now you are saying everybody return back to the farm. Those security is there. Somebody cried a few days ago and said there is glut of eggs and they don't know what to do with it. Because there's a timeline. The storage facilities are not there for them to continue to keep egg. So if it is under climb, of course, you'll find that government will buy this off them and sell even at very cheap prices to citizens, because there are many people in this country can't have egg. So what idea are we really in government offices preferring to help the citizens of this country? Are there people who are thinking for developing anything, helping and providing the goods? We just hear a dividend of democracy. One person is able to build a 3-block toilet. You come to the TV and all that to announce and all. Is that where we are in this part of the world? So that is a big question.
Chief Fafa Babalola, himself a private university proprietor, says that mass school closure is unconstitutional and counterproductive. In other words, he wants schools to reopen as quickly as possible. And then on the other hand, you have people who are saying, hold on a second, why do we have to go back to school when we know that this second strain of the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, is even deadlier, much deadlier than the first, at least that's what we're being told. So they say that should even be a much stronger ground for ASU to go on strike, to say, look, until government puts adequate measures in place across public universities in this country, we are not going back to work. Isn't that a step in the right direction?
My brother, the truth about it, for safety reasons, that would have been, and all that. My brother, but the COVID thing we're talking about, is it not what we are told? For instance.
So you have your doubts?
No, not having that much doubt, but look what is, what I'm saying is this. Are we not supposed to be also amongst those who are telling? Are the universities not centers of research excellence? What are we doing in this country? One would have thought that government, after the first wave, would have, appointed university centers and research institutes to develop, agents to track and treat, centers to develop because the world is still trying to find out what is COVID-19. I'm telling you, has any person been able to elucidate thoroughly the structure of if it's an organism or whatever it is? Have they been able? No. The world, people are still working. The vaccine that is being developed. And why is it that we are waiting, cap in hand, to receive whatever we are giving from outside here? Are we not also human beings? Don't we have government in this place? Can't we develop? Do we know where God wants to put the idea of somebody who will develop what will be used to treat COVID-19? Why is it that in Nigeria, nobody is working anywhere? Except for that first wave, all of us went out, developed in University of Benin, for instance, somebody developed ventilator. Some of us, yours sincerely here, will produce sanitizer and explain the efficacy of sanitizer and how it can be manufactured so that our people who are trying to put it away can also share from it. Many persons developed wash hand stations that the first novel ideas of you step into a place, water will open, soap will open, you wash and clean and all that, you continue. After then, all those things have gone into the archive. The government continued with, how far, how, to what extent can we improve on this and all that? Nothing. That is, I mentioned just now that this is how a pounding machine was developed in this country, but then it was China that took it over and then actioned it and then started marketing it. So for how long are we going to continue like this? I thought we should have people who are thinking in areas of government, people who are at least preferring direction for this country. I mean, is government just for a fraction and all that? So I don't understand. I don't understand. Then what do we do every day? Is it politics we play every day in government offices and all that? I expect that there should be, some technical groups. You have technical groups, you have economic groups, different groups who are generating reasons of what we should do next. Why are we going? I mentioned somewhere, I said, I think that one day God will give me an idea on how to advertise on the moon. God will give me an idea on how to make iron transparent one day. Those things are yet to be done. What are we doing to achieve all of this? There should be a group generating ideas. Those who are trying to realize this idea will be somewhere in the areas of monetary policies and all that. There should be people. So, but I don't know what's happening here. Everything we are playing politics with. So that is what
across this country, we have people who have gone through the university system, either as academics, non-academics, or students, for example. And we know how students in particular cluster in classes, for instance. I mean, off the top of your head, you spent the bulk of your life lecturing within the university.
Yes.
Does it scare you? I mean, when you see that picture of how students will come back to class clustering again and you're right in front of them, does it not scare you? Does it not give you concern as to say, look, we are heading in the wrong path?
My brother, is scary. You know why? Because if you even look at the hostels, we did a survey with a media house in the past. The houses that were supposed to house 2 students at the inception that is when it was built. Now houses about 16 students. And many of these students have paid. They paid for those hostel fees. They paid hostel fees.
So the service must be rendered.
Yes, now are you going to tell them that you no more accommodate them? I mean, where are you also even going to keep them? Do you understand?
But can't the university limit the allocation of rooms knowing that facilities are overstretched?
No, limit the number of
allocations. For instance, you already know that this room is supposed to take 2 persons originally.
Yes.
And then, of course, you are now taking 16.
Yeah.
And you say, well, they have paid. We don't have a choice. We need to give them what is due them.
Yeah.
All right. Can't we blame that on the university system, for example? Because the federal government does not directly, it's not in charge of those hostel facilities, obviously.
You see, excuse me, in like manner, you would have said, why are we admitting more than the number of students we are supposed to take in class? Because if you come to many of our practical classes, about 15 to 35 students cluster around one burette. In the secondary school, I had one burette to myself. In the university, people are having almost about 15 to 35. So at the end of the day, you find some students who they don't know how to use the burette.
Because they have never gained access.
Yes. They can't reach it. There's no way 35 students will be looking. It's a glass. They will break it. And so some are just watching others, while some are sitting on the tables discussing, waiting for results generated by their mates. But who are you to blame? Is it not the country? Because these students must be educated. And it will be good if Nigerians are educated. And so if you shut them out of the university, of course, you are not doing the country any good. And so now, you are forced to accept that these students return back to school. If you bring students back if you go to any university environment, you find that almost all the houses and all that, they are all taken up now. You know the population at a time in one university, some are over 40-something thousand. So how are you going to cope with all of this? So that is why we are saying the best would have been you sterilizing stations. You have all of that. Then you have that students should mask up. You have the temperature meter. By the time you are able to provide all this, and you are sure that every student that is before you are all safe of COVID-19, of course we can still relate the way we did in the past. It is only when you are not sure that some are vectors, that is that they can transmit this, that is only when you have problem. But if you have been able to test these students, be able to find that they are safe, of course they can interact. What you do is that you monitor the going in and out of every student. Limit external persons from the university at the gate. You understand? This is not the time to now insist that you have a shop on campus, you must trade there.
Or you want to come use ATM terminal?
Inside the campus, no. You can now do all of this. You will restrict visitors to the campus to a point. We can engage all of this, but we need government to assist. The universities need government to assist. How are you going to generate funds, for instance, to be able to develop sanitized stations, the temperature meter and all that? Yesterday I was saying, now, then the advice I'm going to give to my vice chancellor in addition is ask that many of our staff, they should designate staff to the gates of many classrooms or most classrooms. Somebody with an temperature meter should be there to pre-test. Then insist that you have your mask on, and then, of course, also be careful. If we cannot immediately test all the students, which would have been very good, at point of resumption, every student is supposed to be tested. You test whether the person has any symptom of COVID-19 before. That is what they do in secondary school now. There are so many private secondary schools that are still going on now. If I'm to return my child back to school now, one thing that I've been asked to produce, send him back with bottles of sanitizers, and then they even define the type of sanitizer he must bring and all that. And then I'm sure that at the end they are going to the test, they sanitize their bags before they go into the hostel. So that when you, at any point in time on campus, you are sure that everybody there is free of COVID-19.
COVID-19 has taken the lives of many of those who work within the universities in this country, whether teaching or not teaching staff.
Yes.
some people are saying, is it possible that something more drastic will happen? God forbid, fatality within the campus or within the university community would have spiked. Maybe that would, as it were, nudge ASU to double down on its engagement with the government, because people say that ASU is not engaging the government enough. Of course, that's based on their own assessment. As far as the COVID-19 is concerned, because they don't seem to see the potential danger that it poses upon resumption of these universities, because they feel if ASU did, the engagement with the federal government on that level, along that line, will be more intense, more vehement than it currently stands right now.
A few days ago, our president, ASU president, was on one of the media to talk about this. He didn't even hammer on that government has reneged on their promises. All that he kept on hammering on was, you know, the COVID-19 protocols, whether the federal government has been able to put all of that in place before throwing the university gates open. But has anybody listened to him? Even when are they not going ahead that schools should resume? Has government released anything? Here, I don't understand whether we are not one country in this world. So people, I can't explain. But ASU they've done their bit. If we begin to argue again that because of COVID-19,
you're going back to strike.
We are not. Yeah, that we are going back on strike. Even the parents and even students. Somewhere, you know, somebody alluded to the fact that I have a post that one lecturer was murdered in a boy or something like that. We were trying to nurse fears. Before you know it, just now, if you call yourself an ASU member, that somebody will take you up in town or attack you in town. We have that because of the pressure that we are facing. Nobody is looking at what we are saying, what we are asking for. Even this COVID-19. But of course, you take it. For almost 10 months, a child has been at home. The clock is ticking. Time is running out.
But you have to be alive to complete your education.
Yes, but then, but have you heard NOA discussing all of this, talking about this? Is anybody advising citizens on your media, for instance, that, look, has anybody put any paid advert anywhere? But we have been left, you know, to our fate. That is what I'm saying here in this country. Just try your best, do your own best. That is what we are saying here. As if the country is on auto run. Nobody is advising anybody. Gates are open, and then you are not discussing on how feasible this can be, but that the universities must open.
A lot of persons are now saying that on account of this COVID-19, especially the new strain now, the relationship between ASU and the federal government is going to become even more frosty, given that it's going to become new grounds for ASU to continually engage the government, especially when you look at the danger inherent in this virus. Because again, we already talked about the clustering in schools across campuses in this country. Doesn't that give you concern too? Because at the point it will appear it's not going to be so much about revitalization fund and all of the other elements that you talk about when you engage the federal government, as it's going to most likely be about the interface that will happen and continue to happen on the basis of this virus on campuses in Nigeria.
Yeah, I'm sure that we'll get a point when ASU members or university staffers will cry out that we cannot continue this way. If it is noticed that so many of these protocols are not observed and that the universities cannot provide the facilities, people will definitely cry out. That time it won't be ASU alone. It will be everybody on campus. Because anytime you mention, they say people will already make jokes with it, that anywhere you call ASU, the next thing is strike. That's what it is. So that one, for instance, on our moral end is already taunting us. That is taunting the union. strike ASU and all that. But nobody is looking at what we are saying. Is it germane or not? But nobody cares. Now, death will be staring at all of us in the face, and everybody will not need to cry out to government.
We'll talk about government in this context. It's a bit more ambiguous. Over the years, ASU's engagement has always been with the Ministry of Labour. To the best of your knowledge, as an insider, how much of engagement or collaboration is ASU forming or has formed with the Federal Ministry of Health, for example? Because we've taken our time to talk about measures that should ordinarily be put in place prior to resumption of schools. One would have thought on the basis of that, at this point, the least that already should have happened or should be happening is collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Health. Is that happening at all?
I can't, although we have, most of our members are also doctors and nurses who deliver lectures and teach in the universities, but I'm not sure there had been that kind of intentioned collaboration, if I put it that way. That is a purpose kind of, let's do this with the Ministry of Health, because I've told you, the thing actually is that the vicious anger of the public and of the public against ASU already affects ASU.
Does that stop ASU from initiating collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Health?
But I'm sure that some persons will somewhere discussing, especially after our comrade president has raised the issue of possibility of opening schools. Yes, nobody will, as a president, will throw that overboard and put the heads of her members in danger. Yes. So I'm sure at the national level, because even when you called me yesterday, I was somewhere with so many of my colleagues, and we're discussing all of this. You understand? That COVID-19 issue may, frustrate the possibility of opening schools. Then the others are saying, even if you open school, are we going to teach on empty stomach and all that? And then if somebody is also sick, you need money to also buy drugs. How are we going to get the money to buy drugs if you as a lecturer fall sick of COVID-19 or something? So we are just in awe in the university. Don't know what to do.
At this point, just before I let you off, last question. When ASU got the directive from the Nigerian Universities Commission to resume sometime in January, for example, how did it as a body officially respond to it?
No, we were the one that, we first of all...
You proposed that resumption?
We not resumption, we can't.
Okay.
We suspended our strike. And of course, that was, the resumption was premised on our suspension of strike. I'm sure you know that. Of course. Yes. And so now government has said, okay, we're opening the university, but ASU has also come out to advise. That is the best we can do.
To advise?
Yes, we can do in this circumstance. That you can't open schools if you have not provided. And then some persons are already saying that ASU is also saying that they shouldn't open the university because of the advice. What we are saying is advice we have given.
Not a directive?
No. So whatever you like, you do is your.
So does that imply that individual universities can take their decisions in this circumstance?
Oh, obviously. If you find out how the calendar varies from one university,
of course,
to the other, that is it. So universities, in fact, what is happening here is that government feels that they built the universities, run it the way you can. That is what we are seeing.
I think my next conversation with you will be maybe first 1 week into the resumption. Then I want to do an assessment of what your sentiments will be at that point.
That would be nice.
Having interacted with students again after 11 months.
That would be nice.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Julius Yasale.
Thank you for having me.
Coming to talk to us. For the record, Professor Julius Yasale is the immediate past chairman of ASU Uniben chapter. We're taking a break at this point. We're back shortly to conclude on the program. Stay with me.
How you go stay for 4 days without food inside this house? I don't hear anything today. You must give me that money.
Mr. Danji,
Why you want use hunger kill your wife?
I used to take care of my family 100% until when something can happen.
Wetin happen?
They send me text message say bank don't block my account number. Say I never complete my BVN registration. They say I call the number where did that text message. I can't call them. They say I send them my ATM number and the number where did the back of the ATM, including the expiring date. I can't text everything sent to them. The next thing I see, na alert. They begin to beat my account to until they finish the whole account.
You don't fall mugu be that.
Oga, wetin that come in now?
E mean say your husband you don't dupe am.
Hey!
My country people, if anybody send una text message or email say make una send una ATM or BVN number, no send them because na thief them be. Anybody where they use internet, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter or personal mobile phone, fee fall mugu. No share your ATM pin, password or personal information online. Shine your eyes on cyber criminals full internet.